Welcome to Living Well After 50. Did you know 85,000 Americans face heart attacks each year, often without warning?
Wow.
In today's deep dive, we're sharing life-saving steps to survive a heart attack when you're alone. This knowledge could save your life or someone you love. Let's dive in.
For those of us over 50, it's easy to think it won't happen to me. But the reality is, heart attacks can strike anyone anytime.
Right.
And when you're alone, knowing what to do in those first few minutes is absolutely critical.
That's why we're doing this deep dive. We've got some great source material, a video from a cardiologist, a first-hand account from a survivor, and the latest research on heart attack response.
And the big takeaway from all of them is that time is muscle. The faster you act, the less damage to your heart, and the better your chances of a full recovery.
So let's start with those first crucial moments. The video really stressed recognizing the symptoms early on. We all know about chest pain, but what are some of the less obvious signs we should be aware of?
Well, you might be surprised to learn that shortness of breath can actually occur before the chest pain even starts. We're talking about that feeling of intense air hunger, like you just ran a marathon, even though you've been sitting still.
Wow, that's definitely something I wouldn't have expected. So it's not just like mild exertion, it's a real struggle to breathe.
Exactly. And that feeling of impending doom the survivor described in their story, that's another sign. Your body is sending you a very clear message that something is seriously wrong.
Okay, so shortness of breath, a sense of dread. What else should we be on the lookout for?
Nausea, lightheadedness, even breaking out in a cold sweat. These can all be signs of a heart attack, especially in women, according to the research. And then there's radiating discomfort.
I've heard that term before. Can you explain what it actually feels like?
Imagine a tight band squeezing your chest and that pressure spreading to your arms, back, neck, jaw, even your stomach. It's not always a sharp pain. Sometimes it's more of a burning, aching sensation.
That vivid description really helps. It's like those nerves are all interconnected, sending out distress signals. So if we experience any of these symptoms, even if we're not sure, what's the absolute first thing we should do?
Don't hesitate. Don't downplay it. Don't wait to see if it passes. Call 911 immediately.
The video was very emphatic about that.
Yeah,
It's tempting to think, we can tough it out, or that it's just indigestion, but every second counts.
absolutely. And when you call, be very specific. Tell them you think you're having a heart attack. Describe your symptoms concisely, and crucially, let them know you are alone. This helps them respond faster and be prepared for a situation where they might need to get into your home.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. You don't want them wasting precious minutes trying to figure out what's going on or how to get to you. And while you're waiting for the paramedics to arrive, the video mentioned something about aspirin.
Yes, this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
You probably have aspirin in your medicine cabinet, but did you know that chewing a 325 milligram aspirin as soon as you suspect a heart attack can actually be a lifesaver?
I've heard conflicting advice about swallowing versus chewing aspirin. What's the science behind chewing it in this situation?
Chewing the aspirin helps it get into your bloodstream faster. And that's key, because aspirin works by thinning your blood and reducing clotting, which is often the root cause of a heart attack. The faster it gets to work, the better your chances of minimizing heart muscle damage.
So it's like giving your body an extra boost in its fight against the heart attack. But, not everyone can take aspirin, right?
That's a really important point. If you have a bleeding disorder, are allergic to aspirin, or are taking certain medications, aspirin could be harmful. That's why it's crucial to talk to your doctor beforehand and get their advice on whether aspirin is appropriate for you.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about personalized advice and knowing your own body. But even if your doctor has given you the okay for aspirin, I imagine it's not a substitute for professional medical care.
Absolutely not. Calling 911 is still your top priority. Aspirin is just a supportive measure you can take while you wait for the ambulance to arrive.
Okay, so call 911 first. Then consider the aspirin if your doctor is giving you the green light. What else can we do while we wait for the paramedics to arrive? The video had a surprising tip about unlocking the front door.
Right. I remember thinking, why is that important? But then they explain that paramedics need to get to you as quickly as possible. Unlocking your door, or even cracking it open a bit if it's safe, can save precious minutes.
It seems so simple, but in an emergency, we might not think of it. Those few minutes it takes to force entry could make a big difference in the outcome.
Exactly. Every second counts. Now, here's another tip that might seem counterintuitive during a heart attack. But it's all about conserving energy and reducing the strain on your heart.
You're talking about the sit down and stay calm
Hmm.
advice, right? It seems strange to just relax during an emergency.
I know, it sounds odd, but the research shows that finding a sturdy seat with back support, not lying down, can actually reduce the workload on your heart.
So we're not talking about collapsing on the couch. We're talking about sitting upright in a supportive chair.
Precisely. And while you're sitting, try to control your breathing. Take slow, deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. It sounds simple, but it can help regulate your heart rate and keep you calm.
Yeah, I could see how that would help. Panic and stress can only make things worse in this situation. Okay, so we've covered calling 911, considering aspirin, unlocking the door, and staying calm in a seated position. What other life-saving tips did the experts highlight?
One of the biggest ones, and this might surprise you, is never, ever drive yourself to the hospital during a heart attack.
I can understand the instinct to want to get to the hospital as quickly as possible, especially
Yeah.
if you live alone. But why is driving yourself so dangerous?
Well, think about it. Your symptoms, the chest pain, dizziness, shortness of breath, could impair your driving and put you and others at risk. You could even lose consciousness behind the wheel.
That's a terrifying thought. And even if you manage to drive safely, wouldn't you be delaying treatment?
Exactly. When you call 911, the ambulance isn't just transporting you to the hospital, it's bringing the hospital to you.
That's a great way to put it. You're getting immediate care from trained professionals and have access to life-saving equipment and medications right there in the ambulance.
Precisely. So even though it might feel faster to drive yourself, waiting for the ambulance is actually the safest and most efficient way to get the treatment you need.
That's a really important point to remember. The ambulance isn't just a ride, it's the first stage of your medical care. Now, the last tip from our sources focused on something we can all do, even if we're not the ones experiencing the heart attack.
Right. It's all about alerting someone nearby if possible. Even if 911 is already called, having someone there with you can provide support, communicate with the dispatcher, and even guide the paramedics to your location.
That makes a lot of sense, but what if you're at home alone? Who can you alert?
It could be a neighbor you trust, a friend who lives close by, even a delivery person or someone walking their dog. A quick text or call if you're able, shouting for help if you have to.
What about those emergency features on mobile devices? I know some phones have an SOS function.
Absolutely. And for those who live alone, personal alarm systems or even smart home devices with preset emergency calls can be invaluable.
It's amazing how technology can be used to our advantage in these situations.
It really is. The point is, having someone else aware of your situation adds another layer of safety and support.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about recognizing the symptoms, calling 911 immediately, considering aspirin, unlocking the door, staying calm and seated, never driving yourself to the hospital, and alerting someone nearby if possible. That's a lot to remember, but these are actions that could truly make a difference in a life or death situation.
And remember, knowledge is power. By being aware of these steps, we're not just protecting ourselves, but potentially empowering ourselves to help others in need.
That's a powerful thought. We never know when we might be in a position to make a difference. But before we get to part 2, where we'll be discussing heart attack prevention, let me remind our listeners to sign up for the Living Well After 50 newsletter. We've got even more life-saving advice, tips, and resources delivered right to your inbox.
You can sign up for free on our website.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve into how to reduce your risk of a heart attack and live a longer, healthier life.
We'll be right back. You know, it's fascinating how much emphasis both the cardiologist and the survivor placed on prevention. It's not just about surviving a heart attack, it's about reducing our risk in the first place.
That's a great point. But I have to admit, as I get older, I sometimes feel overwhelmed by all the health advice out there.
Right.
Where do we even start with prevention?
Well, the first step is understanding our individual risk factors. And that's where a doctor comes in.
Right. They can run tests, look at our family history, and help us create a personalized plan.
Exactly. It's like getting a customized roadmap for your heart health. Now, some risk factors we can't control, like our genetics or age,
Right.
but there are plenty of things we can influence through lifestyle choices.
Like what? Give us the lowdown.
While the usual suspects are still the biggies: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and obesity. These are all major contributors to heart disease.
We hear about those all the time. But what makes them so dangerous for our hearts?
They all put extra strain on your cardiovascular system. High blood pressure, for example, means your heart has to work harder to pump blood throughout your body. Over time, this can damage your arteries and increase your risk of a heart attack.
Okay, that makes sense. And high cholesterol, that's the one where plaque builds up in the arteries, right?
Exactly. It's like a clog in your pipes. The plaque narrows the arteries, restricting blood flow and making it more likely for a clot to form.
So it's all interconnected.
Mm.
These risk factors kind of feed into each other. What about smoking? We all know it's bad, but how does it specifically increase the risk of a heart attack?
Smoking damages the lining of your arteries, making them more prone to plaque buildup. It also raises your blood pressure and heart rate and decreases the amount of oxygen your blood can carry. It's basically a triple whammy for your heart.
Wow. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize it had that many negative effects. It's definitely a powerful motivator to quit.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about something a little more positive: exercise.
Ah, yes, the fountain of youth. But seriously, how much exercise do we need to make a real difference for our heart health?
The research recommends at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week. That could be brisk walking, swimming, dancing, gardening, anything that gets your heart rate up and makes you break a sweat.
So we don't have to train for a marathon, but we do need to get moving regularly. What about diet? Is there a specific heart-healthy eating plan we should be following?
The good news is it's not about deprivation or complicated diets. It's about making smart choices and enjoying a variety of nutrient-rich foods.
Okay, so what are the key things to focus on?
Well, the Mediterranean diet is often touted as being heart healthy. It emphasizes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats like olive oil and avocados.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
And it's more about making sustainable changes to our eating habits, right? Not just going on a crash diet.
Exactly. Small changes can make a big difference. Maybe start by swapping out sugary drinks for water or adding an extra serving of vegetables to your plate. And don't be afraid to experiment with new recipes. Healthy eating doesn't have to be boring.
That's great advice. And I think one of our listeners will appreciate is that it's all about balance and enjoying life. We don't have to give up everything we love, but maybe just moderate our intake a bit.
Exactly. Deprivation often leads to binging, so it's about finding a healthy balance that works for you.
Now, our sources also touched on something I hadn't really considered before. Being prepared for a heart attack, even before it happens.
Yes. It's not just about knowing what to do during a heart attack. It's also about taking steps beforehand to make those actions easier and more effective.
So like what? Give us some examples.
Well, they emphasized having your phone charged and easily accessible at all times. Think about where you usually keep your phone and make sure it's in a spot where you can reach it quickly in an emergency.
Oh, that's a great point. I tend to leave my phone in my purse, but in an emergency, I might not be able to get to it easily.
Yeah.
Maybe I should keep it in my pocket or on my nightstand. What other preparation tips did they mention?
They also recommended keeping a list of emergency contacts, family, friends, neighbors, programmed into your phone or posted somewhere visible. In the heat of the moment, you might not remember phone numbers.
That's a smart idea. And I guess it wouldn't hurt to familiarize yourself with the quickest road to the nearest hospital, just in case.
Absolutely. Knowing where to go without hesitation can save valuable time. And speaking of time, they also stress the importance of being aware of any potential delays in emergency response times in your area.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about that before.
Rural areas, for example, might have longer ambulance wait times than urban areas. Knowing this ahead of time can help you make more informed decisions during an emergency. For instance, if you live in a remote area, you might want to consider alerting someone nearby as soon as you suspect a heart attack, even before calling 911, just to have someone there with you while you wait for help to arrive.
That's a really important consideration. It's all about adapting these tips to your individual circumstances.
Exactly. One size doesn't fit all when it comes to heart health.
Now, one thing that really struck me from the survivor's story was the importance of communicating your health history to your loved ones.
Absolutely. It's crucial that someone close to you knows about any pre-existing conditions, medications you're taking, or allergies you have. This information could be vital for healthcare providers in an emergency.
And it's not just about medical information, it's also about having a support system in place.
You're right. Knowing you have people you can rely on can make a huge difference, both physically and emotionally.
It's about building a safety net, not just for ourselves, but for each other. And, our sources also emphasize the power of community in promoting heart health.
Right. They talked about how sharing this information with others, friends, family, colleagues, can help spread awareness and empower people to take control of their heart health.
It's like a ripple effect.
Yeah,
We can all make a difference by spreading this knowledge and supporting each other.
exactly. And speaking of support, one thing the cardiologist in the video mentioned that I think is worth highlighting is the role of cardiac rehabilitation program.
Oh, yes. I've heard of those, but I'm not really sure what they entail.
Cardiac rehab is basically a medically supervised program that helps people recover after a heart attack or other heart event.
Hmm.
It includes exercise training, education on heart-healthy living, and counseling to help you manage stress and make positive lifestyle changes.
So it's like a comprehensive support system to help you get back on your feet and thrive after a heart event.
Exactly. And the research shows that people who participate in cardiac rehab have better outcomes. They're less likely to have another heart attack, they have improved quality of life, and they're even less likely to die from heart disease.
That's incredible. It sounds like a really valuable resource for anyone who's experienced a heart attack.
It really is, and it's something that's often overlooked or underutilized.
Well, thanks for bringing that to our attention. I'm sure our listeners will appreciate knowing about this resource. So we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive. We talked about the importance of understanding our individual risk factors, making healthy lifestyle choices like quitting smoking, getting regular exercise, and eating a balanced diet. We also discussed the importance of being prepared for a heart attack, knowing the quickest route to the hospital, having emergency contacts readily available, and even considering alerting someone nearby as soon as you suspect a heart attack. And we highlighted the power of community, both in terms of spreading awareness and providing support. And let's not forget about cardiac rehabilitation programs, a valuable resource for anyone recovering from a heart attack.
It's been a really enlightening deep dive into heart health prevention.
Now, in the final part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring some cutting-edge technology that can help you monitor your heart health and potentially detect problems early on. We've talked about surviving a heart attack when you're alone and how to prevent one in the first place. But let's face it, technology is evolving at an incredible pace.
It really is. And some of these advancements are playing a remarkable role in heart health.
Yeah, exactly. So for this last part of our deep dive, let's talk about some of the cutting-edge technology that can help us monitor our heart health and potentially catch problems early on.
You know, one of the things that really stood out to me in the research was the rise of personal EKG devices.
I've heard of those, but I'm not entirely sure how they work or what they're used for.
Well, imagine a mini cardiologist you can carry in your pocket.
Okay.
That's essentially what a personal EKG device is. It's a small, portable device that allows you to record your heart's electrical activity anytime, anywhere.
Wait, so we can literally get a reading of our heart rhythm just like that?
Yes, you simply place your fingers on the device's sensors, and it records your EKG in about 30 seconds.
That's amazing. And then what? What do we do with that information?
You can view the results right on your smartphone or share them with your doctor.
Oh, wow.
It's a great way to track your heart health over time and detect any irregularities early on.
So it's like having an extra set of eyes on your heart 24/7.
Exactly. And these devices are becoming increasingly affordable and accessible. You can find them online or even at some pharmacies.
That's fantastic. It sounds like a really empowering tool for anyone who wants to be proactive about their heart health.
It really is. And speaking of proactive, the research also highlighted the growing role of artificial intelligence in cardiology.
AI and heart health. That sounds futuristic.
It might sound like science fiction, but it's quickly becoming reality. AI algorithms are being developed to analyze medical images, like echocardiograms, and predict the risk of heart attacks or other cardiovascular events.
So AI can actually help doctors identify potential problems before they even happen.
That's the goal, and it's showing a lot of promise. The early detection of heart disease can make a huge difference in terms of treatment and prevention.
It's incredible to think how far we've come in terms of heart health technology.
It really is. And the best part is this is just the beginning. There are so many exciting advancements on the horizon.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From the immediate actions to take during a heart attack to preventive measures and cutting-edge technology, it's been quite a journey.
Right.
We've learned so much about empowering ourselves to live well after 50.
And remember, this is just a starting point.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, stay curious, and advocate for your well-being.
Absolutely.
And be sure to share this information with your friends, family, and loved ones. Spreading awareness is one of the most powerful things we can do.
Absolutely. We're all in this together. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into living well after 50. And don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter for even more valuable tips and resources.
Until next time, take care and be well.